What's up, everybody? Rob Ferretti here, Podcast 58. I'm here with Glenn DiGiacomo. You may know him from Glenn's Car Collection, famously on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and Twitch stream. And we also have Jimbo here on the computer, switching back and forth between cameras, but I don't think he has a camera on himself, which is good because he'll probably sleep for most of the podcast. Yes, no? Not far off. I want to thank the sponsor of this podcast. We have Sheath Underwear, E-Auto Warranty, and 1-800-Flowers, but we'll get to them in a little bit. First things first, let's talk about some recent events. We had the $500 car challenge in Texas. Videos just went live, and I want to throw a big thank you to the Patreon people. That's your money hard at work, and unfortunately the Patreon is not covering the productions yet, but it's offsetting them. Let's just put it that way. I was doing the math, and we're at about $7,800 for a $500 car challenge in Texas when you start adding everything up. So not cheap. Definitely doesn't pay for itself with ad revenue on the YouTube side. But I enjoy making them, so I got to figure out a different way to monetize that so it actually makes sense to do because they're really fun. Like, I don't know if you've seen them, but really fun.
Now, how'd you find that car? It was a Camaro, right?
Camaro. Everything was on Craigslist.
Okay. Well, you had a video for people to help you find a car. Did somebody give you a link, or you just went through Craigslist?
No. Well, we identified cars. We had a little, let's call it a begathon. Does that make sense? Where Tommy and I both went live for 20 minutes, and whoever raised whatever money, we could tack it onto the $500 and then buy a more expensive car than $500. The idea was to get some cool trucks, like some off-roading trucks and everything. We didn't want to go crazy, but we figured we'd get up to $1,000 each or something like that, and we were pretty close. But ultimately, we both split up the money that came in, and it's symbolic anyway because YouTube takes like 30% of the donations. But we spent about $1,800 between the two cars. But it was just storyline-wise, it was good to have the little drive there.
Right.
But yeah, so that was a good time. We enjoyed that. The challenge was great. Unfortunately, Danny Nardi got sick after the first day. Or maybe she was just sick of me, one of the two. And that turned into just Tommy and I going down. There was going to be, we were shopping. When I say shopping, the Garrett Mitchell was invited. That's Cletus, for those of you who watch Cletus McFarland. We had David Patterson was invited, but he had to do something. LZ was invited, also had to do something. Amelia Hartford almost came, but that didn't materialize last minute. But it is what it is. We had a good time. Tommy and I held it down, and between Tommy, myself, and Danny, I think we enjoyed it. It was fun. I liked the dynamic of three cars more, and I got that feedback from the comments that people were like, it would be cool if there was, I mean, you guys were great, but it would be cool if there was a third car, which is, I get it, but it also multiplies the cost, and it requires extra people to come. Now, I love doing them, so, I mean, I think we may even do something silly like that when we're in Germany in October or something. So some first to get a ticket, or first to get a whatever.
You have to do 500 euros.
I wonder what 500 euros will get you in Germany. It'll be pretty interesting. And I got to learn and brush up on the filming laws over there and all of that stuff, because the last thing I need to do is like record somewhere where you can't, and then we get all twisted up. Excuse me.
Sweet.
So Rob Dahm also was invited to the $500 car challenge. Couldn't make it. But he just finished his 3-rotor.
I was going to say, is it up and running?
It is up and running, or at least like sort of running. And he dynoed at 928 rear wheel horsepower.
Wow.
Which is not bad because that's 5 horsepower less than my Supra. So 5 horsepower less, but I've got like an extra, I don't know, what's a Supra over a RX-7? Like, I don't know, 1,000 pounds.
Oh, yeah, a lot heavier. I think the RX-7 was like 2,800. Right.
And then the Supra's what, 36, 34?
Oh, right. Yeah, it's up there.
So yeah, there's a significant weight differential, but I weigh less than Rob. So we've got that. Yeah, I don't know.
That would be a great race.
And it's also gearing too. I'd like to see I'd like to see those two go at it. So, Rob Dahm, bring it. Let's pick a. I think that, I mean, I don't know. Quarter mile is not enough for 1,000 horsepower cars.
Right.
I don't think. I mean, I'd say the RX-7 would probably hit harder out of the hole than my Supra, unless I really put like a drag pack on it. But I don't really want to waste money on like 15-inch rims and tires.
Right.
It just, I don't know. I'm not a big drag racer, but a half mile would be really cool, or a slipstream event would be very cool between those two cars. Half mile is probably the best. Well, you get to see us both go 190 or 180 or whatever it is.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Pretty quick, but at least if it was a place where you can lay down the tire, like down in Florida, I feel like nobody could lay down the tire with anything, even 700 horsepower.
Right. He might have trouble with that lightweight too, laying down the power, just getting out of the hole with it.
I personally would just say let's go street race.
Yeah.
But it's tougher when you have a big YouTube channel to be a street racer.
Right.
As is evidenced now by Brooks from Drag Times. I just saw he was in the news. That now the news is all up in his shit down in Florida because like you can obviously tell what roads and there's like deniability, and then with like the vlog style of stuff, it's like, yo, Brooks here, I'm gonna race Glenn in his car, and we're going out, and then like he blurs the faces, but clearly like everything else screams like you're doing 160 and a 50.
Yeah.
And you were just introducing the cars. You've now introduced yourself as a personality, and say we're gonna race, we're gonna do this. You've got like 16 different camera angles. All you need is one reflection or something like that for a prosecutor to be able to make a case. So it's tough. It's we'll see what ends up happening there, but he's got some heat. They put together a task force to go at him, or at least this is what the news says, because the news does operate off of hysteria and sensationalism and getting people to watch their story. So Brooks, I wish you good luck with that, and we'll see what happens. Look, Jimbo, there's a beetle on your light box.
Cool.
Jimbo, you have on a tape delay or something?
Could be worse things.
It's whatever.
Cool. So that's like one of those things. Like everyone's like, "Oh, you want to race me?" And the answer is like, "I can't." And it's tough when you have something to lose, which is like money and a life that you've built. It's tough to go set up street races, which I enjoyed doing way back when. But now, even if somebody else does something and I'm there, because I'm known, I mean, I'm like completely fucked. And my lawyer told me this back in like 2006 when my videos started getting popular. That is like, look, you got to be careful. If you race somebody, even if they crash, you don't crash. You were just driving along.
Right, you'll be liable.
They would essentially find me liable because I'm the quote unquote celebrity, and that sucks. That takes the fun out of life.
Yep. Well, lawsuits follow the money.
But you know what? It's similar to it's also similar to like MMA. Like you can't, like you're a fighter, but you got to like stand there and let some guy talk shit to your face. Because if you fight, then like you as a professional fighter would be considered, your hands are considered weapons.
Right.
So now you're facing like prison term over what would normally be just a bar fight for two schmucks.
Right.
So whether deserved or not, it's you're at a different standard at a certain point in time. So that's less fun. Oh boy!
While we're Rob Dom, you got to do something like what you did at Pocono with the
slipstream. That's what I said. I was thinking about that in Pocono. The surface was good, everything was good. The only thing is I don't know if the distance is far enough. So we'll see. I mean, there is. I think a standing start would probably be a little bit more appropriate. I mean, they're both going to be laggy as hell because they're both big turbo cars.
Yeah.
But I mean, they were both bouncing off the two-step. I think it would be a cool launch to watch.
You got to bet some money on it.
I mean,
well, what happened? Didn't you have a $10,000 bet with him?
We did. It was more of a figurative bet challenge. I mean, ultimately he's been I don't want his money. I don't think he wants my money.
Right.
So like it was sort of incentivized. Yeah, it was like motivation, but. And if it was like super close and we went like best 2 out of 3 or it was like something like that, I feel a little less guilty. But like, I just wouldn't feel comfortable taking his money.
Yeah. Now, do you think your Supra is pretty reliable if you had to do 3, 4, 5 times?
Yeah, Supra. I don't know. I like his car has been under the knife obviously since like October.
Right.
So that's a long time to be. I mean, what are we in? Going into May? We're in May.
Yeah, barely.
So we've got 5-6 months there. He's had a car that was driving under the knife for 6 months. I'd love to see it back out in like another multi-event challenge. So when I do that in June or July, probably June, I'll try to set one up. I'd like to see him bring that out and give it another go.
That'd be cool.
But I'm going down to Texas on the 16th to the 18th to get my car wrapped up over at LG. And the only thing beyond that is I got to go over to
That's the Corvette, though,
That's
right?
the Corvette, yep.
Yeah.
The only thing beyond that is I got to go to Cook's and have them custom make a manifold for my turbo.
Now, what's the Corvette putting down, horsepower-wise?
Right now, 610,
Oh, okay.
620, like nothing big horsepower.
Yeah,
but
you did a dyno test on it, right? It was a little less than you thought, or
yeah, I did. It was, but that was like 480 on some weird Mustang dyno. I think when I dynoed it again out in Long Island, it was putting down about. I think the max was like 620. But it was pretty consistent, like 580 to 600, which is a lot of horsepower in a light car. And
right, because you have weight reduction on that.
I do. It's and it was like 3,100 pounds, which still isn't a pig, but it's not.
Right.
It boogies. I'll tell you that much. It did 157 and a half, where Gelati was running one without his wing.
Yeah.
Or with like a neutral wing. I didn't even touch my car. Just went out. He was running like 162. In a 2017 Z06 with 730 wheel horsepower.
Wow.
So you're talking a brand new Z06, bigger motor, more boost, and he's got me by 4 or 5 miles an hour. That's not a slow car. And when it came to the actual road course, he was only like a little over a second faster. And it's not like, well, maybe like that's what that car can do. Whatever Lou can do in that car is what anyone can do in that car.
Right.
So it's not like there's any time left on the table.
Cool.
So
Excellent.
it's a fast car. And that's why everybody thinks they need 1,000 horsepower. You don't need 1,000 horsepower. It just, you'll get your brakes hotter, you get the engine bay hotter. And even I may bump it up to like 750 max, but that would be cruising.
Yeah. Cool.
It'd be a tough car to beat with 750 and not overheating.
Right. Now you had did you have some overheating issues, right?
I did have a couple issues. One in Vegas, I had an issue after like 10 minutes.
Like heat soak or?
Heat soak.
Yeah.
I had a similar issue in Sebring, but it wasn't really. I don't know if it was heat soak. I think the whatchamacallit, the computer just went into safe mode, and that started retarding the timing. So I could have gone back out, but it just like, you know what, it's very frustrating. Like I got to get a better set of brakes on that car, and I've never pushed it to the point where I locked up the rears, but Justin Bell was able to get the rears to lock up both in Vegas and in Sebring. So if that's the case, I will. If you have a big brake company and you want to hook me up,
there you go.
I think Justin's got somebody lined up. But yeah, it just the car is tons, but it just shows you put tons of money and you change all the components in any car.
Yeah.
But the key thing is that all of my components are like a decade old. I'm not running anything new. I mean, that car was built a long time ago.
Right.
So to have a car that was built in like 06 to 09, really, that still competes with modern day cars, when the benchmark has jumped considerably. I mean, you're talking braking 7 minutes at Nürburgring was fast as hell 10 years ago. Now they're braking 6 minutes and like, no, that's got to be fake. And they're like, oh wait, no, now this guy's at 656 now, or whatever, 645, and it's like, holy shit, cars are getting faster and faster.
Yeah, and if you look at it that way, because you can buy it off the showroom floor, and if you look what you have into your Corvette for probably half of what you got into your Corvette, you can almost get the same performance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I used to track my Corvettes a lot, and that was the Achilles heel, always the brakes. Yeah. And, heat soak. Like, I would put aluminum. I didn't have the power you have. Any aluminum radiator. Yeah. Oil coolers.
Any of these boosted V8 Corvettes seem to have heating issues, especially on the road course. Most people going up and down a drag strip and throwing a bag of ice on it, you're not going to notice any of these things.
Right.
But if you road course road race the cars, you'll know it's a different beast. You got to start spending a lot. Now, even the Z06, when Lou started pulling it apart, we were out there. He's building the car for the Nürburgring, and that Z06 is taking a lot of parts. Like, when I say a lot of parts, like virtually most of the suspension components, the entire exhaust. There's a bunch of modifications being done to that car. That's just more than pulley tune and
right.
So they built it up to be a pretty badass car, and it shows because it lays it down.
Cool, excellent. Yeah, I mean they're reliable cars, but anytime you put a street car on the track, it's totally different. You know what I mean? It's there's a reason why you put race cars on the track. Autocross or something.
Yeah.
30 seconds or 60 seconds, you're not going to notice the difference. A drag race, you're not going to notice the difference. But when you're out there for 20 minutes, then you're going to notice your car's not made for that.
It's cool that Lou was able to solve the common problem with the C7 Z06, which is the heat soak of the intercooler that people would complain at lapping a road course.
Yeah.
They were seeing power loss and then limp mode going around a road course.
Yep.
And that's a valid concern. That's why most road race cars are.
Right. The Shelby GT 500 had the same problem, but I know a lot of people prefer tracking the Grand Sport because you don't have the supercharger. You still have the wide body, the suspension, the brakes from the Z06. But I don't know. On the street, I take the Z06 with the extra power.
I agree, and it's more moddable. It's easier to crank up the power when you have a boosted car, and especially a factory boosted car is usually built with tolerances that can handle more boost.
Yep.
Without having to rebuild the motor. So one of the things, if you take an NA motor and throw boost on it, you really can't run that much boost without the engine having to be rebuilt.
Right, because you don't have the cooling, you don't have...
Correct. Although I've seen a lot of 850 wheel horsepower C7s with boost on them on factory engines, and that's pretty impressive. That was not a possibility back when I was tuning my Corvette. Back it was 650 or 600 is when you started being pop goes the weasel on the stock engine.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because we used to do headers, intake, exhaust.
Yep.
And that would probably give you in the fours somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, 450 maybe.
Well,
I don't remember. I have no idea.
Yeah, intake, usually a heads and cam on a Corvette, the aggressive ones were running 430
okay, so maybe
on a heads and cam package.
Yeah, maybe it was 4 gross.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, no, it's fun to modify cars. It's fun to see what they can do, but it sucks to pay for it.
And you never get that money back.
Never. And it's funny to see people try. I just saw, speaking of getting money back, there's a guy with the BJ Motors. They do a lot of Vipers, and they're trying to sell a pair of GTSRs, the 97, 98.
Yep.
The
white with the blue stripes.
White with the blue stripes.
I saw one recently. Where did I see one? At some car show somewhere.
Yeah, so they want to sell that, and then they've got another one that's the 2017, the new the Gen 5, and he happened to get the 55th one produced of each run.
Oh, wow.
And so now they're selling them as a matching pair, and I'm like, that's such a weird thing. Who cares if it's if it was the first? Yeah, I got the first C6. I got the first C7. I got the first C8. Yeah, you've got the 55th. And now, when the second one came out and nobody was really ordering them, you said, can I get build slot 55? It's not... I don't know. It's a weird play, and it's a weird... At that point in time, who's going to buy that and drive it, really? It's just you've committed those cars to being parked and then tied at the hip and sold as pairs for the rest of eternity.
Yeah.
And that's just, I don't know, it's not me.
I think for the 98 model, they only made 100 or something like that, I think was the number, right? You could probably Google it.
I don't know. Yeah,
it was pretty low production. I saw one brand new in 98. I saw some old guy at a gas station with one. And then I saw one literally last year at a Cars and Coffee somewhere. So I've seen 20 years apart.
Yeah, sorry.
The Vipers have gone up a lot, I guess, since they stopped making them. And not to say they can't come back at some point. And I think the rumor is if they do come back, they'll be a little more livable, like the Corvette, more of a Corvette competitor.
Sure.
But Aaron bought one, Supra.
Yeah, Aaron, yep.
Yeah, so he just bought, the first year came out. So what is that, 2013?
For the Gen 5s?
Yeah, the Gen 5.
Yeah.
The launch edition, the blue with the white stripes, nice car. I think it was in the 80s or something used. They've been going up quite a bit. For a while, the Gen 5, if you wanted red, which was the most popular color, was like, I've seen them as low, with miles on them, as low as like 65.
Yeah.
But not anymore. They've gone up probably 10 or 15, you know?
I don't know. The Vipers are always going to be Vipers. They're a great bargain to get for like 50 to 70 grand or even 30 to 70 grand. There's a lot of car there. But I don't know. It's not really my favorite of the platforms. And I liked it a lot more before I had the ACR. And the ACR was like one of those cars that made you want to punch yourself in the face because it's like, why is it so poorly road mannered?
What year was your ACR?
It was 09.
Okay, right.
And it was gorgeous.
So
it was
that was
white,
the
black, red
horsepower,
stripe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wait, they bumped it up to like 600 horsepower. Not an ACR, the regular one. But yeah, a couple times I almost bought a Viper. I almost bought a 94, the RT10, because back then they didn't have coupes.
Yep.
But like the build quality was so horrible. I test drove a used
Yeah,
one.
I wasn't able to drive a 94, Glenn. And
I didn't say in 94.
I was going to say Jimbo wasn't born.
I drove a 94.
Yeah. Jimbo wasn't born.
And then I almost bought a used, I should have bought it a while ago, a used 98 GTS.
Okay.
So it was red, no stripe. The coupe came out in, 96, right? And that was like a steal. This guy was like literally moving to Canada. It was somebody I knew that played hockey. I could have got that it had miles on it, which was a lot for a Viper. I'm guessing it probably had 20,000 miles.
Sure.
But like the price was like in the 40s. That car today is still probably in the 40s, give or take.
Interesting.
You know? So, oh well.
Look, they're good at holding their value. You can buy them, put miles on them, and they'll hold their value. I admit that. But as far as cars go, no stability control, no automatics, no paddle shifts.
Well, I'm glad about that.
No, I know, but like that limits the buyers.
Yeah.
And it's become known sort of as a widowmaker because like it's an easy car to crash.
Right.
No traction control. I mean, you're talking
no stability control.
Yeah,
it didn't have ABS till 02.
Yeah, you're talking. It's like the modern day the AC Cobra. Yeah,
and that was that's what it was supposed to be when it came out in '92. And 92 values were depressed forever because 92s were all red. I forgot how many.
Yeah, all
like
red, shitty top, plastic windows. Yeah.
Yep, and no air conditioning. Air conditioning didn't come till I think 93 or 94.
But it's a roadster. What does it matter? It's a go-kart.
Yeah, so now the 92s are like.
And if you don't have a top or windows, the air conditioning's not doing much anyway.
Right.
Just get a cool suit and call it a day.
But the 92s, when they were still making the Viper, were worthless because the build quality wasn't very good. Yeah. But now they're like. They're up there. They're six figures. They're as high as any Viper because it's the first year. They didn't make that many. But I like the coupes. In 03, they got a lot better when they went to, I guess, the third generation.
But the 03 convertibles sold for nothing. Man.
Yeah.
They've always been valueless, like 30 grand.
Yeah.
And to get like a Gen 1 or Gen 2 for 30 grand, but then getting a 10-year newer car, there's nothing wrong with no 3 Viper convertible, but for 30, 35 grand, it's tough to beat that with anything else.
Yeah, as far as handling performance, I mean, it breaks 60 to 0 in like 99 feet, some ridiculous number. I think it was like 3.8 high threes or something. 60. Like I did one. Skip Barber had a like Viper driving school once that I did, and the performance of that car was great. But the heat coming out of it with like the convertible was like unreal.
Well, even the car that and the hood was very expensive, but even
like 10 grand or something, right?
The car that I had, the clutch overheated just from romping on it for a minute.
Really?
And like I boiled the clutch fluid.
Wow.
And I'm like, for a stock Viper, I didn't have anything done to it. And I was racing it for 35 minutes, and the clutch, like I lost my clutch.
Really? Wow.
And I burnt through an entire tank of gas, so I ran out of gas. Like it's just like two things that you'd think, like the car should be at least able to run for 45 minutes. And then another thing you didn't know about the Vipers, at least the my car, 6th gear doesn't hold speed above 130. Like even if you're full throttle in 6th gear, it will not go above 130. 5th gear is an acceleration gear. I would bring it up to like 150, 160, and then throw it in the 6th, and it would just go.
Well, the Corvette was like that too. I know I had C4 Corvettes and a C5 Z06, and you got to top speed in 5th gear, not 6th. 6th was overdrive. So is the Viper the same way? Was it overdrive?
I wouldn't. I mean, it's got to be an overdrive ratio,
right? But it's not really overdrive.
it's not like an overdrive. You're driving on the highway, and like the Corvette. 6th gear was a pure overdrive. Like you'd go from, let's just say at 80 or 100 miles an hour, you'd be at 3,500 RPM or 4,000, probably 3,500 RPM in fifth.
Right.
And then you go to sixth, you're 1,200 RPM.
Yeah.
Like that's a pure overdrive. The
Right.
Viper doesn't feel like that.
Okay, so that's how the Corvette was. You'd be at like 1,500 RPM. But I remember from tracking my Corvettes, if I went to, say, Pocono, the long course, or Watkins Glen, and you got up like 140 something, you had to be in fifth gear to get that. Sixth gear would run out because it was
Sure.
it was a real overdrive. I don't
Yeah.
know what the Viper was, but the Corvette for sure was overdrive. So you had to keep it in fifth. But yeah, I mean, I think the Viper is definitely a classic. It doesn't have the handling. It's very sketchy handling. I think that's the issue with that car. I love how it looks. I love the power. I love the torque. But, the build quality isn't great. But, that's not where you're buying. But, near the limit, it's going to fail a lot sooner than a Corvette will.
Sure.
It just doesn't have, like, the suspension wasn't tuned
Yeah.
very well.
It's just raw. It's a beast.
And that's what the Cobra is.
Yeah.
The Cobra isn't known for its handling,
Yeah.
right? It's known for the power and the
And
lightness.
the fact that it'll kill you.
Yeah. One time, I used to autocross a lot, and at that time, I had a bunch of different cars, but that one I had a Cayman S, and my friend had like a 98 Viper GTS, and one time we switched for a lap. And the Viper was a beast compared to a Cayman, right?
Sure.
Going through the cones and stuff like that. And the heat was like unbearable. So I told the guy, I'm like, whatever, we were talking afterwards. And he's like, oh, yeah, good thing my Viper has air conditioning. I was thinking that's air conditioning.
That's the good thing. Yeah.
I just felt hot air blowing on me the whole time. That's Viper air conditioning. Yeah. So
you got to get cool shirts if you want to stay cool.
Yeah.
Cool shirts are the way to go.
Yeah, you had that in your video, right?
That was awesome.
Those, yeah.
I still have it. I haven't been able to use it on anything, but I have it in my vet. I just haven't done any races that required the cool shirts. But I'll tell you what, those things, and I'll say them every time, those things were better than air conditioning. They were awesome.
Yeah.
Matt Farah and I were going through the desert, 110 degrees through like Scottsdale.
That was in your Cobra R, right?
Cobra R,
Which
no
has
air conditioning.
Yeah.
Windows down, like they're shooting hair dryers on you. We got these cool suits on, not even sweating,
Yeah.
not your brow. Like all you're doing is cooling your core.
Yeah.
But you feel like $1 million.
Now you got to keep adding ice, though, right?
Yeah, but the ice lasts a couple hours.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm sure there's some new way now, 10 years later or something to handle that. But
like dry ice.
It
or
is what
something.
it is. Speaking of handling, I want to handle some business right now. We'll be back in a second. Going to take a quick break. After a word from our sponsors, we'll be right back. So if you guys are aware, Mother's Day is coming up, May 13th. And 1-800-Flowers has an offer for you because you listen and watch me. Now, if you go to 1-800-Flowers.com/SSR for Super Speeders Rob, 1-800-Flowers.com/SSR. I'm saying it twice so you get it. They have an offer of 24 multicolored roses for $24. Now, that's good. It's easy. All you have to do with 1-800-Flowers to get a nice fresh set of flowers shipped to your mom, girlfriend, wife and girlfriend, coworker, whatever you want. All women love flowers, and it's easy as a guy to forget to ship them, and then you end up having to go to the store, and the local store either sells you crap at the gas station or you overpay on flowers. So check out 1-800-Flowers.com today /SuperspeedersRob, which is /SSR, and they will take care of you. You just set it and forget it. The flowers will show up on their door. They'll get nice, fresh 24 roses for $24. Can't go wrong with that. So there's things I do every day. One of those things is putting underwear on. Now, Sheath Underwear helps cover my ass, especially in these podcasts, by sponsoring us. And now they can take care of your ass too. Now, Sheath Underwear is a premium underwear. It's not your dad's tidy whities. It's not your old pair of boxers that you got in high school that you should have thrown away 5 years ago that you still wear. It's good premium underwear. Their thing is that you can put your balls and your shaft into a little pouch in the front. Makes you look huge. Huger. I mean, it's all you, but it looks good. But it also keeps your balls from rubbing against your legs or sweating. And that skin to skin, it's not a good thing. You don't really want it. And it's a good, comfortable underwear. It looks good. It feels good. And it's functional, and it makes your sack not sweat. So that's something to check out. You can check out their website, sheathunderwear.com. You can enter promo code SPEED. That'll save you 25% off your first order. And I promise, once you get Sheath Underwear, you're going to be ordering more and more pairs. So I'd probably get at least 3 to start, because you're not going to want to wear the same pair every 7 days or wash them every other day. It gets a little awkward with underwear. So, man, it's not a pair of jeans. You can't just get away with wearing the same pair of jeans 4 days in a row. Underwear, you can't do that, no matter how much you like them. So check out sheathunderwear.com, and you can use the promo code SPEED and save yourself 25%. I guarantee once you start wearing them, you're not going to wear anything else. I don't. So there's things you never want to do in the car world. You never want to not buy a car because you're afraid of the maintenance costs. And you also don't want to be fearful when you buy a car of driving it because you don't want to break it. Two of those things, it ruins the ownership experience. So how do you fix that? Well, there's a company called eAuto Warranty, and eAuto Warranty will sell you a warranty. You pay monthly just like you would for your car insurance, and it relieves the stress and anxiety of having a big maintenance repair. And that's something, I mean, they cover the smaller stuff too, but obviously that doesn't keep you up at night. The stuff that you're concerned about is a pilot bearing failure or something that everyone talks about as a possibility. And you're like, ooh, I don't want to have to pay for a transmission rebuild on that. Well, eAuto Warranty will cover it. So check it out. You can go to eAutowarranty.com. You can enter your car in. You can get a free online quote, or you can enter a car you're interested in, or like, oh, one of those Maseratis I've always liked. See what it would cost. It may make sense to you. It may not, but it will allow you, if you do go ahead with it, to sleep easy at night. I'm telling you, the proof is in the pudding here. I had a warranty that I was paying for 4 months, and they covered that means they made $300 off me, and they paid for a $2,400 repair. So it's good. It's nice to have. It's good to have in your back pocket if you ever need it. You don't have to renew it after the first year. You can just do it on a yearly basis. But I'm telling you, once you have it, you're going to love it. And especially when you get your money's worth out of that repair, you're going to be happy you made that choice. So check them out, eAutowarranty.com. You can get a free quote for your vehicle or one that you're interested in purchasing. All right, and we're back. So I want to talk about, Glenn, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but Ford is looking into the future, and they're saying, I don't think we're going to be able to compete very well in these shitty little cars. So let's just crop off everything but our top-selling models, and we'll just stick to that.
So they're keeping the Mustang and a Focus that's, I think, sold in Europe, like the Active or something like that. Active.
Are they not? They're got to be keeping their trucks, right?
Yeah, they're right. The reason they're stopped making cars and they're making a Mustang, which is a car, and a Focus, is just, I guess, everybody wants trucks or SUVs now, especially small SUVs.
Yeah, but they're getting rid of the pedestrian fleet. Like they're getting rid of the Fusions, I
guess the
Fiesta,
right?
Yep,
Fiesta.
That was a song by Cameron.
And they think GM could not be far behind either. I mean,
yeah, but somebody's got to make these boring little cars.
Well, what do you think? I think the big thing is small SUVs. Everybody wants now, right? So like. An Escape.
I don't know why. The small SUV it's not as fuel efficient unless they make electric small SUVs, which people will be like, oh, it's just electricity. Who cares? So,
but like even Porsche, like the Macan is their best seller now.
Is it really?
Yeah, and it's like for a while when it came out, there was like a waiting list to get a Macan.
But I did the video the other day on the Range Rover Evoque. I think it's a pretty weenie car. Like I really don't like it. I mean, all these cars, when they're so small and they want to have like reasonable fuel economy, they've got like shit for storage space, but ultimately they have they all have to be like 4-cylinder motors with turbos on them,
right? And
that's the only way to keep any sort of reasonable gas mileage. And I don't really like the way those drive, to be honest.
And the turbos don't get the best mileage, right? So
they do all right.
Well, the EPA test is like at 2,000 RPM, and those turbos, for a reason, kick in around 3,000. So they're really, so that's, we all have these normally aspirated motors, and now everything's, instead of a 6-cylinder, it's a 4-cylinder turbo, right? Instead of an 8-cylinder, 6-cylinder turbo. And for EPA purposes, it's meeting the gas mileage because you're not into the turbo for the test. But in reality, if you drive like me and you're into the turbo and you're probably getting the same or worse gas mileage.
Sure.
But I mean, do you think, like, is the Macan that great of a car that, you'd wait a year to get one and pay full sticker? I'd take the Panamera.
I wouldn't.
Like an M5 over, a Macan, an SUV.
True. There's, there's different cars out there that I'm just not into. And I can tell that they're popular, but they're popular because people, like, the reason the Evoque is popular is because it's a Range Rover.
Right.
And people want to say, and that the micro SUV segment, the cars take a bath in value, except for like the Range Rovers. They hold their value very well because everybody wants to, like,
it's the
Mercedes, BMW, Range Rover. They just want to be able to walk around and be like, yeah, my Rover, but not. And that's why the CLA was so popular, because you get a Mercedes Benz new for 35 grand.
I had a CLA 45 AMG, but they depreciate too. I mean, the Evoque is based on the Escape. Obviously a more luxurious version, but I'm sure the Evoque took a bath too from, retail value.
It really didn't lose that much value. No. I mean,
what are they new in the 40s?
Yeah, like 43.
Okay,
it's worth like 35 now.
Oh, that's not bad.
And with 20,000 miles on it, that's actually very good for a car that's got that many miles on it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess maybe the SUVs will hold their value. But like you see from Audi, you have the A5, and don't they have an A3 now SUV? But even BMW,
I don't know if they have the SUV.
Yeah, BMW, the X3, right? Yep. The X1. Now the X1's becoming the X2. So everybody.
I really don't like that i3. That car bothers me for some reason.
There was an issue with that car, right? Wasn't there like...
it sucks?
No, but there was an issue. You had to get like the range extender with it because otherwise it really wouldn't get...
I wouldn't go very far
in a charge. But I think there was some kind of issue where they can't sell them anymore. There was some kind of recall, maybe for fire or something. Charging.
They have like wood paneling on the
I don't know how. That BMW claims, though, that's the I think the fastest car they have, 0 to 30, because of the instant torque of the electric engine.
Really?
Yeah. So that's
and the tires
faster.
Are like this big. It's
and
like bicycle tires.
That's probably why, because it's small.
No
tires
resistance. No rolling resistance.
So that car was even faster. I've seen videos than the i8. 0 to 30. After
the i8 sucks, so I don't like the i8.
What did you see at the auto show when we went to the i8 Roadster?
Yeah.
Well, the i8 was cheap for a while. Not that this is cheap. People were releasing them like ridiculous, like $1,200 a month or something.
Yeah, it's not. The thing about the i8 that I don't like isn't the look. Mm-hmm. It's really the power plant, and it's not an electric car. It's not a gas car. It doesn't do anything really well.
Right.
It's a interesting looking car, like out of the Tron movie, and that's about all you got.
I drove one. I test drove one. I liked it, actually. I don't know. I liked it enough to buy it, but the handling was better than I thought. I mean, it was quick. It wasn't super fast.
Yeah, the people that I know that have them seem to like them, but to me, it's just weird.
But I mean, they were backlogged with them and couldn't sell them, and that's why they subsidized the lease so much.
The NSXs too. The NSXs I just read. Last month, you know how many NSXs sold nationwide?
In a month?
Yeah.
30.
5.
Really?
Yeah. That is like...
I thought 30 was all. I like that car a lot. At the new price point.
What's the new price point?
Well, I think they had dealer incentives up to like 40 grand.
Yeah, 30, 40 grand.
Yeah.
So
at 130, I think
that's 130. Car. I think I'm going to get one for Gotham. But ultimately, and 125, 130 is what I always said was the price point on that car. But they were selling for 250. Imagine buying one for 250, maybe 20 over,
ridiculous.
30 over.
Ridiculous.
You paid almost 300 grand for a car that's worth and you drove it for 1,000 miles. Now it's worth 150,000 less than you paid for it, or 100,000 less than you paid for it. That's a huge swift kick in the dick.
Yeah, and I think that was the biggest mistake. Not only pricing it too high, but adding all those ridiculous options, and then every dealer wanted over sticker.
Yeah.
And
they wanted over sticker when 100 of them were for sale.
Right,
and I'm like,
exactly.
all right, look, like clearly
it's not a
you're
Ferrari.
not going to it's not going to get over sticker, because unless you get some asshole who walks in here and doesn't know how to use the internet.
Right.
You can look around and there's a lot of them for sale.
And there's a lot of Acura dealers, so it's not like you're driving across the state for one Ferrari.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was almost like there was some collusion, because it almost seemed like everybody was listing them over a list on eBay and everything like that, even though there was 1,000 of them up there, and clearly the demand was not as great as the supply, or it was less than the supply.
Right.
But people, I mean, I'm sure it normalized now, but nobody's getting over sticker. They're discounting them 30, 40 grand, as you said.
Yeah.
And that's a significant drop.
My friend just leased one in the fall. I think it was like $1,600 a month.
Okay.
Which was a lot less than, before it was like 2,000 something.
Sure.
With those. And, I think it's a great everyday car. You can even get all-season tires. Like Acura wants you to drive this car 12 months a year. And it's, it has, I think for a daily driver, it's great. If you're like a doctor or a lawyer or dentist or something, you want to drive that every day. Get it in blue so I can get it used from you one day. But I think that's at 130, I think that's a great price point because what's it going to depreciate to, 100?
It's really not going to go very far from there,
exactly.
to be honest with you.
Right.
And tomorrow I'm actually filming with my NSX and the new NSX.
Are you really? Awesome.
So I'll have them side by side, which should be pretty cool. Both blue.
Yeah.
And then there's a Gen 1 NSX too, so we can get
Nice.
the it's not blue because they didn't make them in blue back then.
Yeah.
But we have the flip up headlights, the fixed headlights, and then the new.
Yep.
NSX.
My first NSX was a 95, which was the first year of the Targa with the flip up headlights, and then I had the blue 05. Yeah, and I did a video of it back in October, I guess. And I didn't really compare them direct, but you see my blue NSX and then the new one, And the new one I drove, I forget what the sticker was, 165 maybe?
Was it still...
it was serial number 0000 that I drove.
Okay, that's just that's a crush car,
pre-production,
yeah. That car's no longer with us.
Yeah.
They crush those things. Because they can't legitimately sell it or part it out or do anything. They just got to trash them.
Right, and the issue that mine had, and again, it was pre-production, you had wind noise coming right here on the driver's side. You can really hear the wind noise pretty bad. Like it wasn't sealed all the way.
Jimbo's sleeping,
yeah,
so
that's why.
No, because if you look on the screen, Glenn is talking, but he's reversed his fingers, so now Glenn is talking, and you just see me staring at you. So,
if you see me on camera looking to the side or signaling Rob, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So I'm like looking at myself over there, and I'm like, Glenn's talking, and I'm on the screen. So it is what it is.
Are we boring you, Jimbo?
Jimbo had a long day, and he wants to get to the gym. Where are we at, Jimbo? What do we have on the clock?
You got another math, Jimbo. Come on.
What?
We're at 47?
Did you say 10 minutes?
Yeah, about 15 minutes. I'm happy to, and look, I can talk. I could talk till everybody falls asleep. So Jimbo's just used to listening to me talk. So he can go. And Jimbo's got an amazing knack for sleeping as well. So I think we work very well together because when he's tired, I just start talking and he just conks right out.
He's got to sleep when he can.
Yeah, but I was doing a video today that put him to sleep twice. And
I can't wait to see that one.
Well, it's up. It's live. It's actually it's a video about Bobby Kahn. And if you're not familiar with Bobby Kahn, just check out your local FBI's Most Wanted list, and he's right on there.
Or American Greed episode.
Season 10, episode 10, if you were wondering. But yeah.
So tell your Bobby Kahn story, and then I'll tell mine.
All right. So, mine's going to be longer, so you go first.
All right. So I actually I did 2 leases with Bobby Kahn. Being in commercial real estate, I leased him 2 warehouse spaces. So let's just call it 1 warehouse space. So the first thing he was going to do, and I guess it was to raise cash, which I didn't know at the time, he was going to rent like a 30,000 square foot warehouse space for me to kind of be like a clubhouse. It was going to be car storage. You know, you get your car service there, you get your car detail there like you're exotic. You come there to watch football on Sundays. And he even actually took an ad out in the paper, in the Bergen Record full-page ad for memberships. You pay like $20,000 or something to get a membership. You can keep your car there. You have access to all these things. Hopefully nobody took him up on that offer. And then he kind of disappeared on me. And then the second time around, he had told me that because he had Emporio Motors, right? And it was an used exotic car dealership. And he was going to rent another warehouse for me. And the story he had told me, and again, I had no reason to believe otherwise, that he was getting out of retail and he was just going to go into wholesale business. He didn't want to deal with customers and people coming in with their kids want to sit in the Lamborghini and yeah, exactly. And have to, tell people, oh, they got to check with their wife to buy it, blah, blah, blah. So he was going to sell that dealership, which I guess he was behind in rent, and, lease warehouse for me. And he was just going to wholesale cars. So, and that was, he said it's a phone business. People come, yep. Exactly. Right. Because he started with the Mercedes and then Jersey City and all that other stuff. So, at that time, I was selling, and I always sell cars myself because I can get a couple. If you can get an extra 10, 20%, extra $5,000, you sell 10 cars yourself over time. That's $50,000, right? Yep. It's a free Corvette or a free used whatever. So at that time, I was selling a Lotus Exige S and a Porsche Cayman S, and I actually used the money for both of those cars to buy the 993 Turbo. And I just asked. I don't know. I was busy doing real estate, and Bobby was selling a lot of cars on consignment because I asked him, "These cars, what are they?" He said, "They're consignment cars." And I almost gave him my 2 cars to sell. And I'm like, well, what do you charge? He's like, oh, I only charge, I forgot what he said.
$1,000 a car or something.
Yeah, $700. And I go, why so little? And he said, because I make money like on the financing. The next guy's going to want warranties, financing, all this other stuff. So And so I said, I thought about it. I almost did it, and then I didn't. And I wound up leasing him that space, and he was texting me like every day for those cars.
Sure.
He's like, oh, I got a buyer, bring him in. I don't know, it just seemed weird, like he was chasing me down.
Sure.
Does he need $700 that bad, you know? So I leased him this the space, and, you know, there's a real estate commission due, and typically we do some kind of build out. So for me to give him this 20,000 square foot warehouse space, we needed security. And I don't remember what that was, but he didn't really have the credit for it.
Sure.
Or couldn't prove the credit. So if somebody can't prove their credit, you ask for a lot. And I don't know what I asked for 6 months rent or year's rent, whatever it was. And before I did the minor work I had to do for him, I had to get that security deposit. So I came to him. He didn't give it to me. He signed the lease, which doesn't do me any good if I don't have the security deposit. And so if people owe me money, I usually go to see them. So I went to see him. And now his brother was working there. There was a sales manager, and then there was another salesperson that I think was an innocent victim. But I don't know if you've ever been upstairs to his office. He had like 9 million security cameras.
Yep.
And so he must have seen me on the camera. And
he disappears.
Well, he actually, after a while, like the sales manager came down, then his brother came down. And I think his brother went to jail for some kind of fraud, but like check cashing fraud.
He let his like wire fraud. He let his brother go to jail.
Yeah. So they finally said, all right, well, Bobby, you can go up there, Bobby, see you. And I went up there, and he gave me a printout of the wire transfer. He said, look, it's my bank. It got screwed up. Here's the transfer. It went through. So I'm like, all right, great. And, you know, I went to my bank with it, and they were like, I don't know who this is. They didn't transfer any money into your account. So he actually faked the wire transfer.
He did. He did that to me a couple of times where he'd send a like screenshot of like a
he
wire.
printed it out for me, but it's essentially the same thing.
Same thing, but wire. He didn't actually like send it.
Right. He just put it up on the screen or something. So then one time I went there to see him again, and I happened to be driving the 993 Turbo, and he pulled in like a Rolls Royce convertible or something like that. And I said, Bobby, you got to give me that security deposit. I'm making up numbers. I don't know what it was, 20, 30,000. I don't know, maybe more. And he's like, oh, I'll get you that. I said, Bobby, if I wanted to sell you my 993 Turbo right now for 50 grand, wouldn't you cut me a check instantly for 50 grand? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, then why can't you give me the security deposit? So then I said, well, you got to give me a check. You got to give me something because, you know, otherwise you're going to be in default. You're going to have to go to court, all these other things. So then he gave me a check, and of course that check bounced.
Yep.
And then, so I don't know if his intentions were bad all the time, or he was just, you know, robbing from Peter to play Paul.
He was, but ultimately he was a professional scumbag, and this is what I said in my video today, because the video, and I'm sure you haven't seen it yet because it went live probably an hour
as I was
ago.
driving here.
We had at Gotham, we had a 458 that we owned in cash, 200 grand. It was worth probably 215, 220 retail. But we were trying to get 200 out of it, just wholesale number.
Yeah.
And we got some wholesale bids from other like dealers, like, oh, we'll give you a 180. I'm like, come on, that's like well below wholesale. So Bobby offered 200 or 205. I don't remember what it was. But I'll never forget when we went through the same thing trying to collect the money that was due. And he gave us $50,000 up front when he said he was going to and this was not a consignment. He was buying our car.
Okay.
And because that's what we were selling him the car.
Yeah.
And so the $50,000 he gave us, then next thing you know is, well, here's $5,000 here. And Bobby, we can't play these games. Now I did probably 10 or 12 successful deals with him with relatively no issues
the
prior year. So I wasn't too alarmed at first, but as we started going on, oh, well, come get the same thing, the runaround, like come get the check. I'm not there. I had to leave. I'm in the hospital. Bullshit.
He told me he had some kind of
brain tumor. Yeah. That's when you start thinking there's a fraud, when somebody starts
faking cancer.
faking a terminal illness. Yeah. So you're like, well, I'm not going to go after him in 6 months because he'll probably be dead. That's when you know you're dealing with a scumbag.
Right, Jimbo?
Jimbo just woke up. But I'll never forget. We're like, because he did the same thing, fake wire transfers. I must have had the wrong account number. Bullshit. Hey, I'm gonna send over $55,000. He sends over $5,000. Oh, they make me break it up into two. The 5 went through and the 50 didn't. We'll follow up with the bank, and it would just go on for weeks and weeks and weeks. And ultimately, I got tired of it. And then, like I parked somebody up at the fucking dealer, like literally sat them at the dealer until he was would write the checks. Wrote the checks. Next thing, well, I'm just waiting with my accountant. Okay, I'm like, well, wait. Like I got nothing but time. I got a guy who's getting paid. He'll happily wait. And ultimately, what ended up happening was the checks obviously didn't go through. We held them. Oh, hold them for 2 days, and then put them through. Oh, I'm waiting for 150 grand, 500 grand to clear. We put the checks through, and they ultimately bounced. And then we're like, after a couple more weeks of like promises of money, we're like, look, Bobby, we're going to go to the cops for passing bad checks. You're bouncing checks. It's illegal. I didn't bounce any checks. What are you talking about, Bobby? I stopped payment on them. And he's like, that's not illegal. And I'm like, holy shit, this guy. That's when I was like, this guy's a professional scumbag. That he knows that there's a difference between bouncing and stopping a check. And I learned this.
He's done this before.
And and he hands somebody a check and then immediately stops payment on it. But also, obviously, the money's not there. So that's why he, quote unquote, stops payment on it.
Right.
But ultimately, to hand somebody a check when the money's not there and let it bounce is like, it just legally looks different. But just proper scumbag. But anyway, if you watch the video I put up, this guy... excuse me.
Now, did he flip that 458 right away? As far as
no. So what happened is he bought the 458, and then he was like trying to find a buyer on it.
Sure.
Because he was buying it off me, so I don't care. I held the title, and I felt secure by holding the title. And after not collecting all the money, I think he got up to like $140,000 or $150,000 that he gave us on it, out of just say 200 for round numbers.
Yeah.
So he only owed me another 50 grand, but he couldn't make it happen. So I started being like, look, dude, I got to sell the car. You can't pay me. I don't care what your business looks like. I don't care. Like, I don't care about anything. Not my problem. I need the money. So I'm going to need the car back, and I'll sell it to somebody else. Whoa, what am I going to do? I'm like, look, I don't want your $140,000, $150,000. I'm going to sell the car. I'm going to go to 3 wholesalers. If you have wholesalers you want me to use, you let me know. I will get 3 bids from 3 wholesalers. I'm going to take the highest bid and sell it within a couple of days. And whatever I get below what you agreed to pay me for it, so below the $200,000, if I get
that's what you owe me.
That's what I'm taking out and giving you the balance back. So if I get 190 for it, I'm going to give you 140 of the 150 you gave me back, but you're not going to penalize me for you jerking me around for 4 months. So ultimately, he's like, yeah, that's fine. So we did that, and I'm like, look, if you know any wholesalers, you let me know. I think I got somebody at like 180 or something like that. Nothing crazy, but I told him, like, all right, he was getting a guy to buy the car, and then he couldn't produce the title, so the guy was returning the car, and he was returning the car to me, and ultimately it all went to shit. So I found a guy to buy it, and I'm like, look, Bobby Kahn, yeah, I know him, dealt with him. Okay, great. Well, I've got the title. He hasn't paid me for the car. He's now returning the car so I can resell it. So he's like, well, I'm going to call. So he did his homework, called Bobby. Bobby sent him videos, photos of the cars. He had him like, I would like you to do a walk around to the car. Bobby walks around with his phone, videotapes the car. He had it on his lot.
Yeah.
Because he got it back from the guy who was driving him around. Because obviously he can't transfer ownership. The guy can't buy and register a car without the plates, without the title. So ultimately, that guy ended up. We ended up going to court after this all fell apart. But the guy who brought it back, and this is, you'll have to watch my video for the full story. That guy ended up getting the car because he claimed that he didn't bring it back to resell it. He brought it back, or return to the resell it. He claimed he brought it back for service, and he was a sketchy guy. Like, this guy was and I can tell you he was lying, because he told me before the lawyers got involved. He told me what he did, and then he told the other guy, the other dealer, what he did and how he brought the car back, because Bobby told him he had another buyer for $10,000 more than he paid for it, like he did with his previous transaction with Bobby. And then when he got a lawyer, his story changed to the only narrative that would have worked to allow him to claim ownership of the car. So he went and he lied, and regardless of us saying, like, he told me this, he told him this.
Right.
Now he's got a lawyer, and now all of a sudden he's got a different story. No, I brought it back for service. I wanted to get the wheels refinished or something like that. And I'm like, dude, you got scratches all over the car. You don't take care of this car. Like, to say, like, you brought it in for anything is nonsense. And they don't even do that there.
Wow.
So, and he's got no evidence. He had no proof of giving the dealership any money. He would buy a car for $100, drive it for 6 months, come back. Bobby would give him $120 for the same car, but he would like be trading up, like turning a paperclip into a house. And ultimately, it worked for him because the dude got a Ferrari. So he got a 458 out of it, and we ended up getting screwed. The judge decided that our leasing company, the one, and we owned the car in cash, but we had it pledged against a line of credit, that the leasing company did something like clerical wrong, and that they were then responsible. And it wasn't that any of us did anything wrong, really. Right. It was just we were suing to be not the guy who has to sue the dealership for their money, because like clearly the dealership is the one who did something wrong. Yeah. But nobody wanted to be the one that have to sue the dealership, and ultimately the leasing company that had the title pledged against stuff was the company that ended up having to take responsibility. But we had to hold harmless in our leases with them. So even though they lost and they were found to do something wrong, Gotham is the one that ultimately suffered and had to pay. And we effectively gave away a $458, $200,000. We had to give all the money that we received back. We got zero for our $200,000 car, and we spent $100,000 in legal. So we flushed $300,000 down the drain, which was a real kick in the stones. I'll tell you what.
Jeez.
So that was no fun.
So really, that happened to a lot of people, obviously. So they
were. Yeah, but it was a little bit more cut and dry. A lot of people were like on consignment, so it was a little bit more cut and dry there. Since we weren't on consignment, and then there was another party, and the car was returned. There was just a lot more moving parts with ours.
Right.
But the state of New Jersey has some law that claims that and this guy knew what the law was, and he with his attorney, and positioned himself to be a buyer in good faith, even though the paperwork didn't line up. There was a lot of fictitious stuff. Guy claims he pulled into the dealership the first time I drove by, and I was just driving around. I pulled in, and he let me test drive the SLS, and then he let me drive it home, and he had a guy follow me, and I gave him $50,000 in cash. You have a receipt for any of this? Do you know who this guy? No. So so the dealer just let you drive a car home with nothing, and you just gave him $50,000, gave some guy who works for him $50,000 in cash and drove away and kept the car on his dealer plate. None of this makes sense. And then he like the actual paperwork he does have. He like traded in cars, and one of the purchases was like he traded in a $15,000 car and another $15,000 car and got $75,000 in trade credit on each car. So we got $150,000 for cars that were blue booked at $12 or $15,000 a piece. Wow. And it's just like, this doesn't make any sense. It's all like money laundering and bullshit.
Jeez.
So yeah, I don't know. So that go check out that video. It's worth watching. It was a huge kick in the nuts, as I said, to the company. To me, it wasn't like we did anything wrong or we could have done anything better.
Yeah.
And it just like lessons we learned, and that's them's the what is it? The head is heavy that wears the crown, or something like that.
I don't know.
So, whatever it is, it sucks.
It's getting late.
You take the shots, but let's see. What we got that. Yeah, but and other than that, the only other thing I want to talk about was something I don't believe to be accurate, but according to a recent report, McLaren sold more cars in the U.S. last year than Lamborghini.
That's impressive.
Which is impressive because Lamborghini has the Huracan, Huracan Spider, and Aventador, which the Aventador isn't a big dollar car. But the McLaren wasn't really slinging SUVs or anything like that. They had the 570s, the 650s, and the 720.
Yeah.
So they have 3 product lines, but like those cars lose their shirt. So I can't imagine they sell that many of them unless they were super heavily discounted. But I just don't feel like there's that many McLarens out there. I feel like there's a lot more Lambos and even Ferraris than there are McLarens.
Didn't they sell a lot of Huracans, like 10,000 of them or something, right?
15,000 Gallardos, and then I don't think
Gallardo's the most. Like half of all her Lamborghini sold were Gallardos at one point. But Huracan's up there. It was like 6,000, 10,000, somewhere in that range.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm sure the 570S, I know they sold a lot of. I'm sure they're discounted.
Sure.
And then they have the 570 GT, and I don't think you can get much of a discount on a 720, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I like both those cars. What do you like better, the 570 or the Huracan?
I like the Huracan, I think, better. The 570 is a little bit too base model, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Huracan looks a little bit more aggressive, and it's a good car. But anyway, let's wrap it there, Glenn. Thank you for joining me. Glenn's Car Collection on YouTube, Instagram, Twitch stream, Snapchat,
YouTube, and Facebook. I don't have Snapchat or Twitter.
Check him out. You want to see his dick? His Snapchat account is CuddleBunny69 at Snapchat. They close you down. There you go. You know how to find me. If you're not subscribed to the podcast channel yet, subscribe to the podcast channel on YouTube, or you can catch us on Shout Engine or iTunes, either one, or your favorite podcast streaming service. We're on there, and you can enjoy the podcast. So thank you for listening. Thank you for the sponsors, Sheath, eAuto Warranty, and 1-800-Flowers. Be sure to do business with any of them, especially 1-800-Flowers, because it's time sensitive, because Mother's Day is fast approaching, and Sheath is a no-brainer, and eAuto Warranty. I mean, these are all great companies, and I thank them for sponsoring the podcast and having us out so Jimbo could pass out.
Yep. Thanks, Jimbo.
All right, guys. Catch you next time. Podcast 58 in the books.